you at this point. It may be something later. The way the question's worded, if I find this, if we do this. I'll hear from the Commonwealth.
We agree it's consequence related. Your first suggestion, I think, is most appropriate, and we would endorse that.
Yeah, I'm going to do that at this time, Mr. Jackson. I'm not going to have a back and forth with them. I'm simply going to say, because it's true, it's the law, that this is not a question I can answer.
But I would strongly suggest we find some other way. If that question continues to remain, then they're not going to ask that question. I don't think the court can say, or should say, I can't answer the question, because the court can't answer that question. The court absolutely can answer it. I would simply say, this question is not before the court without further information, or something like that. Not the court can't answer that question, because if that question remains in their minds, we're going to end up in the exact same position that we were in last year.
There are other steps that can be taken to perhaps prevent that.
Whatever those steps are, I think the first step down the wrong path is to say, throw our hands up and say, well, we can't answer that question. Well, we know we can't answer it.
So I don't know if I want to put you in an uncomfortable position, Ms. Giannetti. I'm inclined to answer the question the way I stated.
Could we have 2 minutes to confer with counsel, Your Honor?
1 minute.
How about 1 minute? You guys are 10 minutes late.
We just need 1 minute. Thank you.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Holy mackerel.
Are we having deja vu right now? Is this Groundhog Day? Are we having the same trial over again?
Wow.
I see Vinnie Politan coming up. We gotta check in and get your reaction to this, Vinnie. If not guilty on 2 charges, hung on 1, are we hung on the same thing? Why can't the judge answer that?
I don't understand it. This is now insanity at this point. This is like we're back to ground zero where we were at the end of the last trial. All the controversy about the jury not understanding that they can return a verdict on a charge. They don't have to return a verdict on all 3. If they're hung on 1 and they've reached a verdict on 2, that is a verdict. To not answer the question, why don't you want the jury to know? It's hypothetical? Well, hypothetically, they don't know what they're doing. They don't understand because the instructions are not clear.
Going back to court.
Going back to court.
Judge, if we not answer the question this time, I would simply ask that the court answer the question as you suggested just now in the court. It's premature to address this question at this time.
No. What do you say, Mr. Brennan? My response was this is not a question I can answer. For the reasons I stated, it's theoretical, and we tell jurors that they cannot be concerned with the consequences of their verdict, and that's exactly what you would be asking me to endorse. What's the Commonwealth's position on the proposed?
I agree with your first suggestion.
Yeah, I'm going to send it in like this, your objections noted.
Your Honor, if I could make my record a little bit clearer, the court is indicating that it doesn't answer questions about the consequences of the juror's verdict. That would be punishment. Of course you can't answer a question like that. This is not the consequences of the verdict. It's how do they report a verdict. So I think saying I can't answer this is sending a false message to the jury. If the court would simply indicate this is not appropriate for me to address at this time, that assuages all concerns. Certainly assuages our concerns and protects the street's rights.
I think what I could add is this is a theoretical question, not a question I can answer. That does the same thing. Is there an objection? I understand, Mr. Jackson.
Have the clause at this time.
Is there an objection to me putting this is a theoretical question, not a question I can answer?
No objection.
At this point, that is over our objection. I
understand.
So make sure the record is absolutely questioned. It could be answered in an innocuous way that does not affect the street's rights. I think this way it does.
Okay, it was a clear question that the defense first told me to ignore. So
I think it's that. Or anything, Your Honor.
All right, we are all set. So let's send this in, please.
All right.
We have to go back live.
Wow. This is insane. The jury asks, if we find not guilty on 2 charges but can't reach a verdict on a 3rd charge, does it mean it's a complete mistrial?
Why are we using the term partial verdict? We just saw this play out on a national stage on the Harvey Weinstein trial. The jurors actually returned a verdict. They found him guilty and not guilty on 2 charges, and they went back to deliberate more on a 3rd charge, which ultimately they were hung on. We've seen this play out, so I'm not understanding why that can't happen here.
Insanity. Let's get to Vinny. He's shaking his head. Help us, Vinny. What's going on there?
I'm at a loss. I'm at a loss as to why this is so hard. This is not hard. The jury doesn't understand what a partial verdict is. That's what they're asking. They're asking, can we return a verdict on a single charge, or do we have to return a verdict on all 3 charges? That's what it is. The judge is saying it's hypothetical. That could be semantics. That could be just the way they're asking. Like, people speak differently. Like if we're not guilty on 2 of these charges, and we're hung on the 3rd, it could be semantics. Like, let the jury, we all know what the jury's problem is here. They don't know if they have to return a verdict on all 3 for it to be a verdict. It was the same thing with the first jury, if you believe the people who came forward and filled out affidavits and spoke to me on the air. I don't understand how we can be in the same exact place without providing, what were we talking about? Clarity. These are 12 people who've never tried a case. These are 12 people who maybe never picked up a law book. These are 12 people who, God forbid, never watched court TV. My goodness.
Who got through the selection process in a case that had intense media coverage. So, of course, inherently, you would think that these people don't know the system.
And Vinny, are people reacting in a way that, we just heard, sorry about that. We do have to get to a break. I gotta ask you a question about whether people see these not guilties as actual not guilties. Let's get to a break. We will check back in with Vinny after this. Stay with us.
Tonight, on Closing Arguments, it's the retrial of the century, and we're live from Dedham with all the Verdict Watch updates. We're bringing you the latest insight as the jury deliberates Karen Reed's fate.
Closing Arguments, tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
The brutal murders of 4 University of Idaho students.
Detectives arrested Brian Kohlberger.
And I pray that we have justice.
The Idaho College student murders trial. Live coverage begins this August, only on Court TV.
I feel like with those questions that were close. What do you guys think? I'm also curious, has anybody, please put in the comments, has anybody changed their mind through this all from beginning to end? I know somebody on Facebook was leaning a different way. Wow. Should I turn some music on at least? Remember, what was that show? The fan. Would they say the plane? Ah, Fantasy Island. I remember. Okay, I'm gonna turn on music because every time I do, they come in. Let's see if it works this time. I'm trying to refresh the chats now on Facebook. But if you leave, just let me know and I'll DM you if they come back. Monica, are you dancing in your living room?
Sunny days have come, sunny days have come, on the road to Damascus. I ain't kicking back, I'm ready, lead me on. That old me did it all wrong. Open their eyes so that they might turn from darkness to light. Open the road, promise made by God, all fulfilled.
on another case in South Carolina that you're not going to miss a moment of the Karen Reed murder retrial. Stay with us.
Colucci on trial again for the murder of his wife.
This is just not an easy case.
Colucci's first trial ended with a deadlocked jury.
We may never know what happened that night.
The Garden Hose Murder Trial. Live coverage today on Court TV.
Tonight on Closing Arguments is the retrial of the century, and we're live from Dedham with all the Verdict Watch updates. We're bringing you the latest insight as the jury deliberates Karen Reed's fate.
Closing Arguments tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. Before we head back up to our roll-in coverage of the Karen Reed case, breaking news out of South Carolina. A judge has just dismissed the indictment against Michael Colucci without prejudice in a case that we were set for closing our opening statements to start this afternoon.
Yeah, Michael Colucci, he was accused of strangling his wife, Sarah, outside of the family jewelry store back in 2015. He had a first trial in 2018 that ended in a hung jury, and now this one is over as well.
Yeah, let's listen to the judge dismissing this indictment moments ago.
The beginning of a new trial is exactly where we find ourselves today. The state argues with some authority and precedent that basically this court should treat it as the equivalent of no harm, no foul, and that now that this information is known, it can be presented to the jury who can evaluate it and give it whatever weight it determines it deserves in arriving at a verdict. Indeed, this court believes that it is a choice among several that would no doubt be upheld on appeal if this trial were to go forward and the defendant was convicted. However, this court believes that our courts should demand better from the state and to simply allow this trial to go forward with so many witnesses, such as pathologists, having been denied the opportunity to have this critical knowledge available to them when that material was fresh, amounts to a foul with a harm. Therefore, this court is quashing this indictment without prejudice and ordering that if the state wants to retry the defendant, it is to do so only after the case has been resubmitted to a grand jury who shall have the benefit of the full measure of evidence this matter deserves. This court recognizes this is an unusual remedy. However, this is an unusual case. This court urges the Attorney General to present a fuller case to the grand jury than is usually done in state court in South Carolina. The goal is to do justice, and this case deserves a fresh restart in order that the citizens of South Carolina can have full confidence in whatever the jury's verdict may be. It is so ordered. All right?
Thank you, Judge. We are grabbing an exhibit to supplement into the court record of a text message that was shared on May the 12th, which would have been, I believe, the same day that they're alleging this happened, where the victim said to Michael, "I'm telling you that I love you. I'm shooting myself in the woods." That is a specific example of her saying that she's going to kill herself, which was one of the reasons why you stated that, Judge. So we just want to supplement that into the record since that was turned over in 2016 to them as well. So we'll be having that as a court's exhibit.
All right, there you have it. The Garden Hose murder retrial is no more. The judge dismissing it without prejudice. So that means that there is the opportunity for these prosecutors to try another retrial.
Yeah, that's probably not going to happen given it's been 6 years to get to this point. It's another case. Let's go back to Karen Reed. We are waiting anything. We're waiting for any word from that jury in the Karen Reed case. It's 13 hours, 54 minutes, almost 14 hours of deliberation, and it's been quite a day. If you're just joining us, there have been several questions from this jury, and the last question of 4, at least the last one we have heard about, was basically, hey, Judge, if we find her not guilty on the top 2 charges and can't figure out the third, is this a complete hung jury? What should we do? The response, sorry, can't answer. That's a theoretical question. Our lead anchor, Vinny Politan, among the folks outside the courthouse. And Vinny, as every second ticks away, the anticipation grows.
It absolutely does. And I want to give you, Ted and Julia, an idea here of what's happening at the courthouse. So we started here at the top of the street, which I call the gauntlet. We're going to walk through it. So you can see the number of people and how far it stretches. You've been getting sort of a snapshot. I want to give you the full picture as we walk and talk here. As we make our way down the street, you can see folks lined up on the left. These are folks who get the shade of the tree, and in case it rains, they're protected. These folks, VIP in the benches that they have. You'll notice the similar colors. Almost everyone is wearing some shade of pink. And now we get to the part you start to see more and more American flags that were being handed out. This is sort of the epicenter across the street from the courthouse steps. Folks have been gathering here. Law enforcement's done an amazing job in communicating with everyone what expectations are if and when a verdict comes down. But you can see I'm moving a little more slowly now because there's many more people gathered here. This is an area, again, you can't chant, you can't show your signs, but you can see the density of the crowd in this area, which is just across the street. These are the steps that we've been broadcasting from. My show, Matt Johnson. We come down here. This is the grassy knoll that I've been talking about, the area under the tree. It goes back 3. You got to be here early to get these seats, but folks have gotten them. There we go. You've got more folks up here going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 deep in this area. Best dressed always. Good, good. And we move down the street. We're still in the buffer zone, so we're still inside the buffer zone. We've just cleared, if you look, we just cleared the courthouse, right? So now we're getting to the area close to where, you can see Matt Johnson is over there. If you look in the distance, you can see Matt. Matt's getting ready. He's across from the folks who get the closest to Karen Reed and her team. We've got more folks here. Again, still buffer zone. Great area over here, lots of lawn chairs. People have a seat. People getting to know each other. A lot of them know each other already through this and other reasons. Now, as we cross the street, it starts to thin out a little bit, but it's not quite over because I'm going to show you the end of the buffer zone as we keep walking down. Now, during the trial, there were many more people down in this area because this is where you could wear your shirts and people were watching live streams of the trial. But yeah, people lined up down here as well. And the further we go, the closer we get to really what was the epicenter of the supporters during the trial. As we move down here, it's a little more comfortable, less crowded, but you're still not far from the courthouse. If you turn around from here, you can see where we are in reference to the courthouse. It's still not far, and you cross the street right here if you want to get into the part that greets the defense team and Karen Reed when they show up in the SUVs. And obviously, folks who are sitting here will be able to see those SUVs arrive. And when there's a verdict, that's going to be one of the indications when the defense team or John O'Keefe's family enters the courtroom once again. Down here, folks got some coolers. Looks like you might have a rubber duck or a chickie or something going on over here. Not quite sure what that turtle or frog means. Turtle, there you go. And then down here, this is really the heart of, during the trial, day in and day out, the folks in this area who are allowed. Because right here, this is the sign. We are now exiting the buffer zone. Okay, so this is the non-buffer zone or the buffer-free zone. And here folks can do whatever they want to express themselves with their shirts and signs and making noise. So that's the entire gauntlet. Back to you guys.
Wow. And thank you, Vinny, because that does put it in perspective.
How big it is, the area to the buffer zone. We'll be checking in with you. I feel like a verdict is coming right around the corner. Let's bring in another Court TV anchor we have in studio with us. Judge Ashley Wilcott is with us. Judge Ashley, what does this mean about the prosecution's case? This is the second time around that they have attempted the same charges. They didn't change things up, even though they knew that many of these jurors from the first trial reported we are not guilty or we were not guilty on second degree and leaving the scene. Real quick.
So some people think that the murder in the second degree is too big of a charge, too much of a charge, the intent piece. The Commonwealth may start to feel that way soon.
We'll see. Let's get a break. More of our Karen Reed rolling coverage from Dedham, Massachusetts, and across the country. People are watching. Look at the clock. 14 hours now. The jury has been working to determine the fate of Karen Reed. Have they come to a not guilty verdict on 2 of the charges? Sure seems like that. Back with this, or more after this.
So they think it's not guilty. We'll see. I can't believe how many people are there. People don't have jobs. Wow, what a case this is.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Julia Janae, along with Ted Rollins this hour. We are continuing to follow the breaking news that's happening in Dedham, Massachusetts with the Karen Reed verdict watch, but we also have some breaking news and a verdict in another live trial that we've been following here on Court TV and CourtTV.com.
Yeah, Megan Jackson was on trial for plotting with her lover to kill her boyfriend. The verdict has just come in. Let's watch.
Indictment number 2021 GS 2601191. The state of South Carolina, County of Horry versus Megan Marie Jackson as to the charge of murder, with the jury by unanimous consent find this defendant guilty. Stoned by foreperson Jeffrey Roberts, dated June 17, 2025. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if this is your verdict, please so signify by raising your right hand. Thank you.
I let the record reflect that all jurors raise their right hand. Any opposed to the jury by the defense? No, sir. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for your service. I will conclude your duties as jurors in this case and for this term of court. And I want to thank you for your service. I know jury duty is not a fun thing to do, but it is an important thing to do, a vital thing to do. You have a 1-year disqualification from serving as jurors in state circuit court. You have a 3-year exemption. I hope you don't exercise your exemption because we do need good jurors. And I want to thank you for your service. You're free to go at this.
All right, Megan Jackson found guilty in South Carolina. If you're interested in more of the coverage, we're continuing to cover it on CourtTV.com. But guilty, she decided not to take the stand in her own defense.
Right, justice for Gregory Rice, the father of her children, one of those daughters taking the stand very emotionally, talking about how her mother acted after this. Again, CourtTV.com, you can watch that trial. We haven't been able to play it as much on air because we have been fully in the Karen Reed murder retrial, where we are still in a verdict watch.
Let's head out to Dedham, Massachusetts, where we find again Matt Johnson, who, along with the rest of us, frankly, is just waiting and waiting, along with lots of people around you. Matt, fill us in on the mood.
Yeah, the mood here is everyone is pretty much very quiet right now as we're waiting for the next move, maybe the next car to pull in here. So we're actually in a restricted area where it's not open to the general public. This is where those SUVs that Karen Reed arrives in and her attorneys, they drive right here. And this is across from the main buffer zone area, or where all of these supporters have assembled across the street. So I want to give you that other perspective from across the street. You saw Vinnie Politan walking through the crowd over here. So this is directly across from the courthouse. This is the Registry of Deeds. You see the majority of supporters are over there. Well, across the street and over this way, you have District Court. They're also over there. That's where that buffer zone originally had come to an end. There were signs in place. It has since been relaxed in a sense, as long as supporters are quiet and not holding signs or T-shirts that directly affect or are part of this trial. You have these supporters that are described as the ones that are closest to Karen Reed when she gets out of her vehicle, and also the O'Keefe family as they make their way to court. But what I also want to show you is, aside from all of the police presence over here, just how close these supporters are and these supporters are to the courthouse in relation to the courtroom. So this is the courtroom where the trial took place. And this is why it's so important to why everyone is quiet out here and they maintain decorum, as these 12 individuals that are deciding the fate after this 8-week trial can do so in silence without influence. I'll send it back to you guys.
Matt, have you noticed everyone keeping it with those rules? It does seem like it sounds a lot quieter than we used to hear outside.
It is completely quiet out here, and we noticed that change, especially as jury was seated, the deliberating jury, and then also those deliberations began. These individuals want to be here to not only witness history, but see a resolution, and of course, they're out here supporting this defendant, Karen Reed, but they don't want to be pushed back or removed from this lifted area that is still under court order and under restriction, but they can assemble here as long as they're quiet and don't have that signage. Otherwise, they can be pushed back to where Vinny had shown you, where the original buffer zone for trial number 2, the retrial, began.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. I love seeing where the actual courtroom is. Hey, Matt, is that a black SUV in front of the courthouse?
Let me see. Let's walk over this way. Let's take a look. Let me see. Usually these officers would be getting on their bicycles. We would be seeing the media over there. They would be grabbing their cameras. I'm not seeing anything come down, but this is the direction of traffic where these SUVs would be coming in, and then they would make their way past where my cameraman's standing. So no, but good looking. We'll keep an eye out for you, and we'll break in.
It might be just someone on their way to the Logan Airport there in a limo. So let's bring in Judge Ashley Wilcott. And Judge, the importance that, Matt did showing us the proximity from the courtroom to those protesters. We've covered cases. Harvey Weinstein, you could hear the thumping of the drum outside of the courthouse in Manhattan. Michael Jackson, same thing. It does make a difference, does it not? Because this jury, if they know that they are being pressured to go one way or another by public opinion, it can change their thought processes. And say what you will about Judge Cannoni and her handling of some things in this case. How did she do on managing this, which is quite a task?
Listen, I agree with you, Ted. The noise factor can really distract a jury. So even if it doesn't sway them one way or another, it can make them anxious, it can make them uncomfortable, it can be traumatic for them. So it's good to keep the noise down. Beverly Cannoni really did. And remember, the buffer zone, you weren't even allowed to be there. And then supporters, took it to court to get a different ruling to say we can be in the buffer zone, but they can't use certain signs, they can't wear different pictures, they have to have, that's why they're doing the love sign with their hand. You know what? People should be able to stand there, but they shouldn't be able to cause a distraction for the jury. Now, I have to say this too, though, Ted. I am wicked impressed with all of these people and how much they are following the rules, because we don't always see this, and people are going to yell and scream and react, even in courtrooms when a judge shows no reaction to the verdict, and then you hear roars in the courtroom when the verdict's read. So this crowd is really managing itself very well.
I love it. Wicked impressed. That's great for Boston.
Oh, for sure, that is. I see Matt Johnson moving. Something may be happening, but let's slip in our break, and we will talk about not only what's happening there on the ground in Dedham, Massachusetts, but also what could happen. We'll have some hypotheticals of our own if this case goes one way or the other. That's next.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, it's the retrial of the century, and we're live from Dedham with all the Verdict Watch updates. We're bringing you the latest insight as the jury deliberates Karen Reed's fate.
Closing Arguments, tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
The brutal murders of 4 University of Idaho students.
Detectives arrested Brian Kohlberger.
And I pray that we have justice.
The Idaho College student murders trial. Live coverage begins this August, only on Court TV.
Welcome back. Verdict Watch continues to march on in Dedham, Massachusetts. You see there we have a camera inside of the courtroom there, and the fan is still going and the jurors are still going. 14 hours and 16 minutes so far over the course of 3 days.
It's been quite a day today with 4 separate questions from this jury, and now a lot of anticipation because of those questions, leading to many people, including us, that a verdict may be imminent, or at least another question, some more clarification from this group. Let's bring in Court TV lead anchor Vinny Politan, who is outside of the courthouse. Vinny, I understand you have found a couple John O'Keefe supporters who outnumbered maybe outside of the courthouse, but there are plenty of them across this country.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously at Court TV, we cover every side of every story that we can. And outside the courthouse, since I've been here, the story's been the sea of pink. We've seen that. We've seen it grow. We've seen it emerge. But I was able to find 2 folks who are showing their support for the victim in the case, Officer John O'Keefe. I want to speak with one of them right now. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
All right. So first, explain your thoughts at this moment. You know, being here, wearing Justice for John O'Keefe badge, outside of a sea of pink.
Certainly outnumbered. That's a fact. I think it's about 200 to 1. I think we're looking for closure. I think everybody's looking for closure at this point in time. I certainly feel strongly about the Commonwealth's case. I feel like they did a phenomenal job. I feel like the data is the data. I feel like this is a very simple DUI homicide case. Whether or not she intended to do it or not, I believe that's up for debate. But I think the prosecution certainly presented a very, very strong case. And I quite honestly think the rest of it on the defense side is just a smokescreen. That's my opinion.
And your thoughts about walking with this sweatshirt on that you're wearing?
Yeah.
Has it been a problem at all being here at the courthouse?
I've had a couple jeers, a couple cat calls. Nothing violent, nothing harassing. Everyone's been fairly kind, but yeah, I've had a couple of people say some things, and I just ignore it. I knew that was going to happen, though, and it's a volatile, emotional situation. I get it. I understand it. They're supporting Karen, and they feel that she was, unjustly accused of this crime. So I understood that coming here and, kind of being an outsider and a one-off, that I was going to subject myself to some of that. But for the most part, Vinny, it's been fine. People have been great.
And are you surprised that more people haven't shown up like you? Because you're not alone. I mean, we've seen and heard from plenty of others. Obviously, the public numbers here at the courthouse, predominantly, almost exclusively pink. But are you surprised more folks like you haven't shown up?
I don't. I think, obviously, a lot of these people are out here for a reason. I think a lot of the supporters for John O'Keefe and their family, they're at home, they've got jobs. I'm not trying to belittle anybody here and say they don't have a job, but I think that I'm from the West Coast. The people that I talk to in my home state and the surrounding states, and I've got a daughter that practices law in the Midwest, they all think this is a very simple case and a very simple outcome that should be, and don't believe in the conspiracy theorists and the conspiracy theories. But I think because people don't want to get involved in this sea of pink, they stay away. And that's my opinion. That doesn't mean I believe that when I see these polls that are skewed in crazy numbers, that I believe those numbers are accurate. I just think that people, choose to support him from afar.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right. So I think it's a real accurate reflection of what's happening. The level of passion that you have for it, what are you willing to sacrifice to bring it, right? There's folks that have to work, folks that have to do things. A lot of folks here are using vacation time. Some have traveled from out of state, like the young man I spoke with. It's a case where everyone has an opinion, and fortunately, I think part of the lesson of this is that everyone should be able to express that opinion. You should be able to, every trial we cover has at least 2 sides, right? Every trial has at least 2 sides to it. And there should be a vigorous debate. People don't have to agree, but there's not really a reason to be disagreeable about it. There's a reason why we have trials. The reason we have trials is people don't agree as to what happened and what should be done as a result of what happened. And we bring in a jury to decide it. And hopefully that's one of the lessons that gets taken away from all of this. And hopefully there aren't any brush-ups between the two sides. I know last year we had one flare-up of some shouting back and forth late in the case. But we haven't seen that here. But primarily, we haven't seen it because the other side hasn't really been here. But there are plenty of people who believe in the prosecution.
Talking about two different sides here, and I'm curious as to how you think this compares to other cases in terms of how split people are. I mean, we cover verdicts almost every day. Every week there are verdicts that come down, but it's rare to find one where people are so split that it almost feels similar to an election, where you know there's almost a chance that it could go either way. It feels a little different now that we've gotten these notes from the jury, but your thoughts on this case and the dynamics of it?
Yeah, I think, and to be honest, looking back at all the years at Court TV and all the big trials, the trials that touch the public, a lot of them swing one way. Usually it's to the prosecution. It absolutely is. There have been some that were very split. Kyle Rittenhouse, very split. The Menendez brothers, originally going way back, was split. That was split down gender lines. It's tilting one way. It's tilting not guilty. It just absolutely is, from the people who are voicing their opinions, right? That's the only way you can gauge it, is from people who are expressing their opinions. There may be other people who believe in the prosecution but just don't express it. And that would be sad if they wanted to express it and they couldn't, afraid of what the response would be. That's the system not working, right? But if we go by just what people are expressing and have expressed in other cases, this is one that's swinging all the way in one direction, which brings me to a question that I have. In the day that we live of social media, where people are very outward about what they think about a case, is public opinion in sync with what the jury is seeing inside the courtroom? And we only know after the verdict. Johnny Depp, they were. Going into Johnny Depp, I had no idea where the public was going to land on that. I should have known, because Johnny Depp is a world-famous celebrity, but it was overwhelmingly on Johnny Depp's side, and it grew during the course of the trial. And in the end, the jury agreed with what the public was seeing and hearing. We'll see in this one if that's true as well. To me, that's the variable that we have now.
Let's talk logistics here. This jury has till 4:30 today. As much as we thought, we're heading to a verdict, it is coming up to 3 o'clock Eastern time. We're talking about another hour and a half. Do you think they are now back there trying to decipher whether they can come to an agreement on that third charge, if indeed their hypothetical letter to Judge Cannoni was accurate? And if they don't, is it possible we're back here tomorrow?
Yes. Okay. Yes and yes. Yes, I believe they're debating that one count. The hypothetical, I'm not buying the hypothetical. I think it was semantics. It can be interpreted either way, if da-da-da-da-da. I think it's just the way you speak, and you might write out a question the way you speak. But why would you send out a hypothetical about reaching and saying the words not guilty? Because the judge and the lawyers are all going to read that. Why would you hypothetically send that out unless you're really, really cruel to a certain extent, right?
Right. No, I agree.
Whatever
Totally
the verdict is, when it's completely hypothetical, that would be cruel to do.
They can't finish this today, Vinny. They won't be able to finish. They're not going to have enough time because there hasn't even been an Allen charge or anything to push them back on that third charge. We're still ways away.
Right. Right, except if they are on the operating under the influence. If it's just the least of the lesser includeds, if it's just OUI that they're debating, you can fold a lot quicker on that. Whichever side you're on, you could fold a lot quicker on that. And that's one where you could clearly compromise, because people understand the difference between OUI and murder.
This jury, so close. We can feel it. We're all watching together. Vinny is there on the ground. We aren't going to go away from this trial today. So you are with the best network to cover the Karen Read Murder Retrial Verdict Watch. Don't go anywhere. We're slipping in a break. We'll be back.
Yeah, that would be really cruel if they went in there and said not guilty and then came back guilty on everything. No way. I guess that's our answer, but I guess we'll wait and see.
Mr. Reed, any comment?
Not really. Not really.
How are you spending the deliberation time?
In prayer, and, that's about it.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Judge Ashley Wilcott here with Julia Janae because it is all hands on deck. Thank you for staying. This is a huge day. The fate of defendant Karen Reed remains in the hands of a jury. We are in Dedham, Massachusetts for verdict watch in Reed's murder retrial. She is accused of killing her Boston police officer boyfriend, John O'Keefe.
And we're giving you now a live look inside of that courtroom where the jury has been deliberating now 14 hours and 30 minutes over the course of 3 days. Because the camera's on that fan, that means that there's nothing going on inside of the courtroom in terms of being on the record, but when that changes, we will take you there live. Let's bring in Court TV lead anchor Vinny Politan, who is down in the middle of it all, on the steps, in the buffer zone. Vinny, what a moment this is for the jury to send this hypothetical that could all but answer the questions that people have had since the last trial, and we just wanted an answer in this case, but here we are, still waiting.
Yeah, I think we have to take the words of the jury for their words, right? I am under the presumption that they've reached not guilty verdicts in 2 of the 3 charges. I think they're extremely close. I think they're caught up likely on count 2, which is the most confusing of all the counts, the one they ask questions about. I've also noticed, I just have to tell you in the last few minutes, sort of a shift in the winds here. It's getting a little darker, a little cooler. I feel like the rain may be coming down, could be symbolic that we are getting closer to a verdict, right? Just reading into the mood here. But the anticipation of everyone is growing each minute we get closer to that time. And let me show you where everyone's eyes are. Just across the street behind that white SUV that you see over there, that is the area where Karen Reed and her team pull up when they are summoned to the court. And they will be summoned when and if there's a verdict or another question, or to come because it's the end of the day. I would expect them to be here around 4 o'clock or so, because they'll probably check in with the jury at that time to see how long they're going to go. But if they are hung on one of the counts and they haven't sent a note yet saying they are hopelessly divided on that issue, on that charge, then things just move along. And I really think, based upon the response to those questions that they had, they may be trying to figure things out for themselves. Like, what do you do when you send out a question asking, can we reach a verdict on 2 of the counts and be hung on the 3rd? Is that still a verdict? Is that a hung, or is that a hung jury? What is that? And you get no response. What do? I think what you do is you plow through the one you're hung on, because you know for a fact that if you reach a verdict on all 3, that is a verdict. Like, they know that. So I think that may actually, in an indirect way, make them work a little bit harder at this point. But I think that's the hope of everyone here. And I think everyone here is believing that if they reach a verdict on that 3rd count, it will also be not guilty. But we shall see. This is an unusual circumstance, right? Where you kind of get an inkling that maybe the jury has found someone not guilty, before it's actually announced inside the courtroom.
I would say this, Vinny. I think that if it's not guilty on all of the charges, except for the lesser included offense of operating under the influence of liquor, that would be a big win for Karen Reed. Of course, she wants an acquittal across the board. But I must ask you this, because I don't know that I necessarily understand. Judge Cannoni said it was a hypothetical question. I cannot answer a hypothetical question. Do you think, though, that possibly an answer could have been provided to simply say, yes, jury, you may have independent verdicts for each count, so that there's clarity?
Wow, that sounds like a judge wrote that, Judge. Listen, yes, that's the obvious answer. It's not really it's a question of law. They don't understand the law on what is a verdict. They don't know what a partial verdict is. No one told them what a partial verdict is. Here's an opportunity to instruct them. Would it be improper in Massachusetts to let the jury know what the law is? If that's the state of the law in Massachusetts, they need to change it. Like, if 12 people who know nothing about the law can't ask a question about what is a verdict, then we've got a problem. We really have a problem. So we'll see how it all resolves itself. I think the easiest resolution, the cleanest resolution, is for the jury to work it out. But I'm with you, Judge. A clear legal instruction about, yes, you can reach a verdict on each individual charge. And you don't have to say an if, you say you can on each individual charge. So a verdict on count 1 is a verdict on count 1. A verdict on count 2 is a verdict on count 2. A verdict on count 3 is a verdict on count 3. If you're hung on one of them, then you have 2 verdicts and 1 non-verdict. Like, just explain it, make it easier, not more difficult. Why do we do that to citizens? They were summoned down here. They didn't sign up to be jurors in a murder trial. Make it easy for them. I think our system is getting it wrong right now.
I agree with you, Vinny. And they're lay people. These are lay people. They're not going to interpret every word like we trained lawyers have done, because we're trained to do so. So, Vinny Politan, thank you so much. I understand you're going to keep, of course, updating us throughout, letting us know. Oh, good. I can stay with you. I'm so sorry. I thought that we had to go from you because of some other things happening there. So I do want to ask.
I'm not going anywhere, Judge.
Yes.
Judge,
yes.
I'm not going anywhere.
Yes.
I'm going to be here till there's a verdict.
And listen,
that's why I'm here.
I'm so thrilled to have you, because your expertise, the feel that you've pointed out of these individuals are so quiet, supportive of Karen Reed. And in fact, we know Karen Reed did send a message that said, please stay silent. Don't cheer when there's a verdict. Please respect that. Do you think they're going to be able to do that, Vinny?
I think so. It's interesting because there's a natural ambient noise when nothing is happening, right? There's the rumbling of just hundreds of people gathered in a public place having their own private conversations back and forth, but it raises the volume a little bit. It's not chanting, it's not screaming, it's just natural conversation. But then when the attorneys walk in or the O'Keefes walk into the courtroom, there is no sound. There is zero sound in those moments. So I think this crowd is understanding the power of silence. And I think they will abide. I don't know. There's hundreds of them, so there could be a few that say something. But I think the overwhelming majority of them will remain silent in the moment when they all go to their cell phones and listen and watch the stream of what's happening inside the courtroom. And they're all going to experience it separately, but almost at the same time. Because it's funny, when you watch a stream, some are a little more delayed than others. So people watching, some will find out a little bit more before others, whether it's guilty, not guilty. But if everyone remains silent, then everyone will be able to hear.
It's amazing that there's that kind of cohesion, because sometimes with a group that large, I mean, I've been hearing a number that's close to 1,000. I don't know if that's the same today, Vinny, but to have everyone on one accord, someone to be able to come out and deliver this message for Karen Read to them, and for everyone to abide by it, for not just one group to be quiet, but everyone to be quiet. I don't want to talk about this note and what happens now, what's happening now, because I've gotten this question from some of our viewers. If the judge it made some kind of error, this is a hypothetical, in not explaining to them what a partial verdict is, and they come back with guilty on that charge that they at first were saying they might have been hung on, do you think that that's an appealable issue? Let's say they come back with something even higher than the DUI, something that really could carry some prison time.
Yeah, I think it would be an issue. I think it would be raised. I don't know if it would win, though. I don't think it's necessarily a legal error to not answer jurors' questions, right? I think there's a level of discretion in there, so it's not a legal error, but I think it's an error in our system. And I think it's an error in trying to help 12 people understand what they're doing, so the verdict reflects what they're actually deliberating about and what their agreement is for them to understand. I think it would be on top of the list of their issues, but I don't know if it would necessarily be a winnable issue, because the judge's instruction was a non-instruction, so she didn't do anything to err in the way she instructed them. You know, what she said is probably legally sound, but does it help the jury? No. Does the jury need help? Yes. And that's the problem. And I think that's where things are not in sync right now in this courthouse. But like I said, the remedy to all of it is to reach a verdict on it. And you know, we're all looking at it and thinking it's perhaps the OUI, because they mentioned that in their series of notes, you know, trying to get more understanding about it. If it is, the irony of all that is, if they get hung on OUI, if there's a third trial, like a retrial, she's not just facing OUI, she's facing manslaughter, because that's the top charge in that count. So if they can't agree to anything in that second charge, she faces manslaughter again, because in the first trial, the jury was debating involuntary manslaughter. They had gotten past manslaughter. They didn't think it was, but she's facing manslaughter again.
So you're saying Judge Beverly Cannoni's decision there actually benefits the defense in the long run, because if they come back and push for that OUI, then that's it. They can't come back with that manslaughter.
I think that's true. But Vinny, let me push it backwards a little bit, because to me the potential legal issue is the jury instructions and/or, again, the form, which is called a verdict slip in the state of Massachusetts. We have a copy of that. So I think that arguably, maybe there should have been more. It should have been made clear there. Is that a potential legal argument? Because I am astounded and would love for you to weigh in on the fact that we're back here again this trial, because this is not, I think, where anyone thought this would end up.
Yeah, I think all of us have looked at this, and I've got mine here. Obviously, it's been amended since today, but it's a little confusing. It's a little messy. It's not 100% clear, but if you read the actual words of it, as a lawyer, it makes sense, right? But you really got to read it again. But we're in such a different place than 12 citizens. The problem is, who will be interpreting that that verdict slip. It'll be judges and justices. It's not, you're going to grab a person off the street, take a look at that and say, does that make any sense? It's going to be a justice or a judge who's going to read it, and they're going to say it's, my personal opinion, they're going to say it's fine. Like, it might not be the best, but it's not wrong. If you read the words right off the top, not guilty of the offense charged or any of the underlying charges as well. So the words are there. The way it reads to someone who hasn't covered trials for more than 2 decades or hasn't been practicing law for 30 years or who doesn't wear a robe, it might not make sense. And that's the problem. That's the problem. And it's really showing its face because 2 years in a row we're in the same place. 2 years in a row. How does that happen? Something's wrong. It's not the jurors. These are 12 different people who are just as confused as the first 12.
Yeah, I like that you pointed out it's justices who make that decision looking at that form, and you're right, that's a different perspective than a layperson.
That's absolutely true. It's unbelievable that we are here. I remember when we were hearing this question that, for good reason, but Judge Beverly Cannoni didn't let it come out initially when we heard that smattering of 3 questions. She waited until 1:30 is what we believe. We do have to slip on a break, but we are going to keep you posted on everything that happens in this Karen Read trial. We have you covered inside, outside, on air, online. All Karen Read until we get this verdict from the jury, who has indicated they may be hung on one of the charges. Stay with us. You're watching Court TV.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, it's the retrial of the century, and we're live from Dedham with all the Verdict Watch updates. We're bringing you the latest insight as the jury deliberates Karen Read's fate.
Closing Arguments, tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
We're getting you ready for the biggest trials across the country before court is in session. Plus, deeper dives into true crime stories with our daily spotlight.
Opening statements with Julie Grant, mornings at 8/7 Central on Court TV.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. We're in a verdict watch in the Karen Reed murder retrial in Dedham, Massachusetts, and we're getting word that there may be some movement happening in front of that courthouse. Let's go out live to our lead anchor, Vinny Politan, who is there on the ground in front of everything, and let's see if he can tell us what is happening that is changing there.
Okay.
Vinny, can you hear me? If not, we will wait.
Yep, I hear you.
All right.
I can hear you. I can hear you, Julia. I'm off camera just so you can see what's happening here. We haven't gotten any word about anything, but I don't know what's going on. But everybody is now crowding closer and closer to the street. They're more densely packed. The area where the defense team shows up is now filling up. It just appears to me that something is happening. Something is happening. There's been no official word. And I think what everyone is anticipating perhaps is keeping their eyes to see if the defense team shows up or if the O'Keefe family walks into the courtroom, because that would mean that something else of significance is happening. We know where we've been all day. We know what is potentially happening, which is a potential verdict today. So I think the level of anticipation is peaking right now. More so than at any point today or yesterday. So we are on standby, keeping our eyes open to see if the defense team shows up in their SUVs or if the O'Keefe family shows up and enters the courtroom. So we're keeping our eyes on that right now.
Vinny, I will say it sounded like for a moment it got kind of loud out there and then it died back down. But my question for you is this. Do you have any information to know whether or not Karen Reed, who's not under a gag order, lets her supporters know if she's headed back to the courtroom? Is that allowed? Does she do it, or do we have any idea?
I think it depends upon the nature of the communication from the court. If the court says we are not allowed to disclose information for security reasons about whether or not there's a verdict or not, then maybe not. If it's something that's not protected, she could. I don't know if that communication is happening, but all these people that you see are all very connected. A lot of them are getting their information from similar sources that speak to one another and are constantly on social media. So in the world we live in now, if information, and it's a big if information like that does leak or is given to one person, hundreds of people are going to know that information very, very quickly. That's the nature of the world we live in, but also the nature of this case and this free Karen Reed community that is at the courthouse.
I can only imagine the anticipation that everyone there feels, because there is really nothing like a verdict watch, waiting for a verdict to come down, whether you're someone who is actually a party, a family member of the victim, or these supporters that have become very invested in this case. I mean, this is just everything they've been waiting on, not just for the entirety of this 30-day trial, but since the first trial, since this happened and people realized this might be something that equals collusion or corruption. I mean, I can just only imagine what they are thinking in this moment. But I would imagine, Vinny, after the things that we've heard from this jury, it's not a lot. We only heard one round of questions from them, but I can imagine that they are ready to hear the words that they've been hoping this jury would come back with.
Right. And if you can see the woman with the aqua-colored glasses who is recording all the supporters, she's the one who addressed all the supporters to ensure at the moment of a verdict that they remain silent. And she's the one who gave the message from Karen Reed. So that's someone who is getting information directly from Karen Reed. And right now at this moment, she's taking pictures of everyone. I haven't heard her say anything about whether or not she's gotten word from Karen Reed about what's happening. But she's taking this moment to walk in the street to record all the supporters lined up at this particular moment. So that's what's happening right now. But again, it's kind of interesting to see where everyone is right now, because it's not 4:30. It's not the end of the day. The attorneys usually show up pretty close to this time, but this is a little early for that. So if they show up right now, I would think it's something other than just the end of the day. I'm seeing some deputies walking down the front stairs right now. I can also see Matt Johnson in place across the street as well. Not sure if they're just leaving for the day or securing something, but there's a intensity that you can feel here at the courthouse at this moment. So if I was watching at home right now, I would not leave the television. I would not leave the television right now.
Vinny, I'm in pins and needles. I mean, honestly, I will not leave the television. Whether I've been watching all day, I honestly cannot turn my eyes away. So in looking at this crowd, waiting for a verdict, yesterday we were talking about really the routine that this jury is accustomed to. You just mentioned it, 4:20, they'd go home every day. During deliberations, they've gone home around that time. Do you believe, you've seen huge trials with juries, do you think it's true that they are in a little bit of a routine, so they're probably inclined to either finish it by that time or come back tomorrow?
Yeah, I think that's the way it's been operating. And after months of operating that way, I think that's the way it's going to go. And there's limitations here because the security staff has to clear the building and shut down the building at a certain time. They don't have the same flexibility here in Norfolk County, Massachusetts, that we've seen in the dozens and dozens and dozens of trials that we've covered in Florida, where the judge is in charge of the courthouse. Here, security runs the courthouse. So the judge does not keep them past a certain time. I think they shut down by 5. They try to clear everyone out before then. So that's the way it's been going. But the gathering of these people is before that moment, right? I don't have a clock in front of me. You do.
3:22 p.m. So we're at least
3:22.
40 minutes.
Yeah, this is like an hour before that time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is way before then, right? So my gut tells me if people have gotten word that something is happening, and it's come from a source within the defense team or elsewhere, it has spread very quickly. And everyone is here. Everyone is anticipating a verdict at this moment. I'm being honest with you. That's what everyone right here. You look at all these folks, that's what they believe is about to happen. We have gotten no official word, and we have not seen the O'Keefe family or the defense team and Karen Reed arrive. But if they're en route, maybe there's someone who saw them get into their SUVs.
This is, look at many people, Vinny, you've described it, but when you see these pictures, it's crazy how many people are there. All right, that verdict.
Standing.
Yes.
They were sitting earlier, but they believe something is happening. As we see these cars go by, I know they're all just waiting which one is going to be the one that may have the defense team inside, or even the O'Keefe family. Let's do this. We have to get to a break, but now's a good time. We know that we're on this verdict watch, and a verdict could come down at any moment, and certainly the people outside believe it's coming soon.
That's right. We'll be right back after this very short break.
I feel like something's gonna happen too. Something is coming. You gotta send me pictures of your little chicks, Jen. Oh, it's all fan. Fan. Are they done for the day or do they have a verdict? Jen in the Facebook chat said the Reed family just showed up to the courthouse. Well, you know what? The judge told them all to be there at 4 this morning, though, in case the jury wanted to go home. I forgot, Jen.
Jurors are entering. Court is back in session. You may be seated.
All right, jurors, I know you want to go home, so it's been a long day for everybody. I have to give you those same cautions. Please do not discuss this case with anyone. Do not do any independent research or investigation into the case. If you happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case, please disregard it and let us know. Be careful with your social media use. We know you've all been working really hard and we appreciate it. So please just clear your heads. Don't think about this case at all as best you can. And we'll see you tomorrow morning when everybody's fresh to start again. Thank you.
All rise for the court, please. Jurors following.
Not today. Sorry about that. Oh my goodness. All right, let's see you guys. Well, let's see if they're gonna talk. Judge Bev looks so tired. Another day. Okay.
Jury's exit the courtroom.
Okay, Tori. All right, we'll see everybody tomorrow.
Thank you. Court is adjourned.
Great night.